Hello, welcome to the place on the internet I talk about comic books. As you might have noticed, I'm not in my normal office, nor am I in the studio I was in, nor am I in the apartment that I was in. I am currently traveling and visiting my folks at the moment. And the only quiet place in a old person's home is several miles away. So my folks have a nice little home, but there is not a space in it where one can have a conversation without an old person saying, what are you talking to me? So I decided to go for a ride and answer a couple questions. This channel is going to be chaotic. I'm traveling for the next 2 months, so we're going to get in where we fit in. This is a very old school YouTuber type of vibe right here. We're doing it from the car, so I'm part of a proud tradition. Now, I'm sure the thumbnail is going to look thrilling. In response to a recent video, I was asked what I think the prospects for a union in comic books might be. The answer is zero prospects. That's the short answer. Let me get into it a little bit. Now, I am not an expert on unions and labor law. I am simply a guy who is friends with some union reps. I consulted them about this in the past because I wanted my own answers. This comes up as a topic in comics with some regularity. And people are very in love with the idea, and I think for good reason. A union is supposed to collectively bargain for better pay, better working conditions, et cetera, et cetera. We could all use that. It would be great. However, it is highly unlikely, and the reason for that is, we're freelancers, and in the United States, freelancers cannot seek the type of union that we're discussing when we say union. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't collectivize in other ways, but they can't collectively bargain. And people point to stuff like the WGA, and they'll say, well, that's a union that represents, in essence, freelancers. And that is correct. It is a cutout. It is a grandfather clause. It no longer applies. And look, if you're watching this going, what the fuck is that? That's frustrating. Yeah, it's all frustrating. Welcome to the discussion. It's highly irritating stuff. Now, there's some debate, I guess, if the WGA could expand its mandate to include comic book creators, which is a thing that I've seen advocated for in the past. I do not know. I'd have to talk to my union friends if that is technically possible or is not. I've heard it both ways. Here's what's important. It's not happening regardless. The people who are in the WGA who work in comics will tell you that the WGA's official position on comics and comic book writers is complete derision. And they do not respect us. It is we are not seen as peers. And in fact, we are seen in some ways as a hurdle because for at least the last 20 years, we've created much of the material that gets adapted, and therefore we are robbing someone of their original writer's credit, right? Because it's an adaptation and whatever. It's all silly. It's all ridiculous bullshit. But no, we can't be properly unionized, is the short answer again. There are efforts to form union-like things. This conversation came up a lot around the Image staff's effort to unionize. They technically can. They're employees. The effort of an unofficial or unrecognized or unregulated union in comic books would not be the same as other industries that do have proper unions. It would be to apply pressure in some ways to the publishers, but in an indirect way that doesn't have the heft of law, right? So if you could get every comic book creator on a similar page of, hey, I'm not working for less than this, that would be a very powerful move. And I think in some ways that's what these prospective unions and comics are trying to do, essentially becoming advocate organizations rather than proper unions. So here's the other problem there. Comic books and the arts in general appeal to a maverick personality, a person who is in their own way selfish. It's potentially because they want to create something great. It's potentially because they want money. It's maybe they want clout. Whatever the individual motivations are, it's the expression herding cats comes to mind. It's basically impossible to imagine a field where comic book creators did not cut each other's throats. I'm going to talk a little bit out of school right now by saying the corporate publishers are murderous dens of thieves. They are. You have creators who are actively trying to undermine each other at every opportunity. You have creators who are undercutting each other. You have it's an ugly, ugly scene in many respects. Some offices are less impacted by that behavior than others, but certainly the very competitive, offices, the most desirable jobs, come with a level of skullduggery that a lot of people outside comics would not really imagine. It happens to a degree at the independent publishers, for sure. There's petty grievances, etc., but it's not seen as zero sum in the same way that corporate publication is. Like you can't have everybody on Batman, but a large number of people could have their own creator-owned series. But it does happen. There's, look, I'll give you an example. How do I talk about this? I'll give you an example that is without names, okay? We'll try this. There was a creator who was canceled. We'll just use that tacky-ass word. And people who had never met him worked to divorce him from the opportunities at independent publishers. And I want you to think about something for a second. When we say we want a union in comics, a union would explicitly protect that person. That's what labor rights are. Your union rep goes to bat for you and says, listen, we need this in writing. What did this person do? We're not removing him until such time that we know that these things being said about him are true. And he will continue to receive a paycheck because he is a worker. Now, this exists outside of your judgments about, canceling or what any individual did or didn't do. That's their job. I mean, talk to a union rep. Union reps have to defend all types of people that they wish they did not have to defend. And in comics, you had these people that really felt that they were on the right side of history, et cetera, trying to strip this man of his work opportunities in a way that within any union shop would be illegal, really. So that's what you're dealing with in comics. You're dealing with first the competition to get ahead, and then you're dealing with kind of a total lack of understanding that we're all in this together. And it's just bleak, honestly. It's a discouraging proposition to even try to collectivize in some way, because we're just not on the same page. We're not speaking the same language. You have... in comics, you have kind of a suicide bomber creator who likely will not accomplish anything. Maybe they're low talent, maybe they're low effort, but they want to be in the conversation, and that person will destroy anything that they can. And then you also have the high-paid, borderline sociopathic winner, right? The guy who is always on top, who You could probably assume a couple of these fellas, but there's people in comics who are known to be somewhat dangerous sociopaths. And I'm not talking about jumping out of bushes. What I'm talking about is they will cut your throat just to see you fall down that hill and not be able to come anywhere near that. That person exists in comics. You talk to editors at the big two. After a couple drinks, they will tell you there are people who are scary out there. Right or wrong, whether you think collective bargaining is just a wholesale social good, or you think that individual bargaining empowers the most capable among us to achieve the most, whatever your personal views on it are, you just have to recognize the reality of the situation, which is that comic book creators are very specifically designed to fail at getting together. The people that are most likely to quote unquote unionize are the people who need it the most, who provide the least. That's not a knock against unions broadly. It's just talking about in comics, the guys who have the ability to negotiate for themselves are going to continue to do so and not throw their weight into a union, even if publicly some of them will tell you that they're huge advocates for unions. You could never, ever get them to collectively bargain. So, sorry to be a downer, and it's a rainy day, and hopefully I didn't depress you, but no, in comics you have the legal hurdle that we're not getting over. But then in the philosophical idea that can we start something that advocates for creators in a broad way and apply pressure to these publishers, you can't do that either. And you can't do that because people don't want nice things. That's just the fucking answer. It's feather the nest and fuck the rest. And again, up to you to decide if that's how you want to live or not, but it's to how comic book creators have decided to live. And the people who have decided to live otherwise are, strictly speaking, not as successful, and they don't have the leverage. So, that's it. Sorry. Bummer.